Hello everyone and welcome back to Beatley Tone's Beatles channel. Lovely to have you here and thanks for joining me for this video, and I hope you're all doing well out there. Now, this video is episode 2 of my ranking series of Paul McCartney's live albums. Thank you everyone who commented on the first part. Really great to read all your comments, so do keep them coming on this one. That would be absolutely marvellous. Now, if you haven't seen part 1 of this video, there will be a link down in the description, or if you do want to watch this one before watching part 1, at the end of this video there'll be an end card that comes up and you can just click on episode 1 and watch it straight after. Should we get on with it? Yeah, let's. So if you've already seen part 1 of this video series, then you'll know we've already named number 8 and number 7 in the chart. I won't say what they are again, just in case you haven't seen it. No spoilers and all that sort of thing. So shall we have a little rank? So number 6 in my chart is this album from 2002, back in the US or back in the world, depending on which territory you're in. So this was the tour from 2002, done in support of the Driving Rain album. So this was the first tour that Paul had undertaken for almost 10 years, and it was the first tour without Linda. It was also the first tour with his new band, who are his current band. And so how did the lineup change? Well, obviously Linda had sadly passed away, so Wicks was the only surviving member of the band from the 2 tours that Paul did in the 90s. And he was joined by Abe Laboriel Jr. on drums, who replaced Blair Cunningham. We had Rusty Anderson on lead guitar, who replaced Robbie McIntosh, and Brian Ray on guitar and bass, who replaced Hamish Stewart. So in my opinion, this is the best band that Paul has ever had, and I think that is kind of, borne out by the fact that they are still, his current band. They're all fantastic musicians and all able to add something to the songs vocally as well, which is really important, especially now. So what versions of songs do we get on this album that we didn't have before? And I will say that the Back in the US album does vary from the Back in the World album, so I'll come to that in a bit, but we'll talk about the Back in the US album first. So we get 4 songs from the Driving Rain album. That is Driving Rain, Lonely Road, Your Loving Flame, and Freedom. As far as Beatles songs go, the set started off with Hello Goodbye, so that was a new song. He hadn't done that live before. We also get a really fantastic version of Getting Better. That was a new song. Mother Nature's Son makes its debut in the live set, as does a song called Vanilla Sky that hadn't appeared on any albums. That was a song that he did for a film and doesn't really work, to be honest. We also see the first appearance of Here Today, the tribute to John from the Tug of War album, and also he does something for the first time as a tribute to George. He does it differently to how he's doing it these days. On this album, he just does it completely on ukulele. So we get 2 more songs that are making their debut on this album, Here, There and Everywhere, and a revamped medley of Sgt. Pepper Reprise with The End. So he's dumped the main Sgt. Pepper song and the part of the Abbey Road medley where he had Golden Slumbers Carry That Weight, The End, that he did on the 89-90 tour. He's just slimmed it down to Sgt. Pepper Reprise with The End. So that makes its debut on this album. Now, we do get lots of songs on this album that have appeared on other live albums, but I will say this about those songs, that where the full band is playing, these songs sound as good as they've ever sounded. And I think that that is partially to do with the musicianship of this great band that he's got now, and partly to do with the fact that, you know, recording techniques of live album has moved on in the 10 years since the last lot of live albums. That is the high points of this album, is that those songs that we've had before, you know, the ones I'm talking about, you know, Coming Up and Let It Be and Hey Jude and Back in the USSR and Long Winding Road, Band on the Run, Maybe I'm Amazed, Jet, Let Me Roll It. All those songs that we've had before, you know, I think sound as good here as they've ever done up to this point. My little beef about this album and the show, I did go to one of the shows at Earl's Court in London in 2003, was there is a long section in this album where Paul is on his own without the band. Now, that's okay. Paul is able to, you know, carry off these songs on his own acoustically or at an electric keyboard. So I'll just read out this section. It's quite a long section on the album where Paul is on his own. So it starts off with Blackbird, then Every Night, We Can Work It Out, Mother Nature's Son, Vanilla Sky, Carry That Weight, Fall on the Hill, Here Today, Something, or all Paul on his own. Now, Paul does those songs okay, and some of those songs you would expect him to do on his own. You know, things like Blackbird, Mother Nature's Son, Here Today, you would expect him to do those songs on his own just with an acoustic guitar. But he does songs like, you know, Every Night, We Can Work It Out, Fall on the Hill. He's done all those with a full band arrangement before, and I can remember thinking at the time that to do these, he either does it with an acoustic guitar or on his own at an electric piano. And I can remember at the time thinking, this is quite a lazy arrangement. Now, I don't know whether he did this because, you know, of an ego thing, he wanted to do a little set on his own, or it was because it was a new band and they hadn't yet had the time to rehearse all these songs and arrange them for the band. I don't know the reason why. But things like Fall on the Hill should have been done as a full band, as should Carry That Weight. Now, it says on the sleeve, it says it lists the song as being Carry That Weight, but it's actually You Never Give Me Your Money and Carry That Weight. And to do, you know, Boy Carry That Weight on your own without the band, it just loses everything. And it's got that really irritating bit in the middle of You Never Give Me Your Money where he pretends that he doesn't know the words. If you've heard the album, you know the bit that goes, and this is the bit where I don't know the words and I'm not going to bother to learn them before the end of the tour. That bit. And that would be fine if he really had forgotten the words, but it is completely staged and he did it every night. And that I find a little bit irritating, if I'm honest. And this little section of the album I still find really disappointing. And I remember, you know, being at the actual gig at Earl's Court and thinking that that was a disappointing section. And I can remember coming away from that gig the most underwhelmed I've ever come away from a Paul McCartney concert. And I've been to 22 of the things, and I still think that that is the most disappointing section of any of his gigs. I just want to say a couple of things about the set that we got here in the UK, and I think probably the rest of Europe as well, and how it differs from the set that was played in the US that is reflected in the Back in the US CD. So songs that were dropped were Coming Up, Vanilla Sky, Freedom, Driving Rain, Mother Nature's Son and Sea Moon. And what we got in its place were I've Just Seen a Face, Calico Skies, Two of Us, Michelle, Let 'Em In, She's Leaving Home and Birthday. I just want to talk about a couple of those songs. So remember, this is the first tour that Paul has done for 10 years. So it's the first tour that he's done since the Flaming Pie album has come out. Flaming Pie is probably in his top 5 solo albums of all time. And he did no songs whatsoever from that album in the US. In the UK, we got Calico Skies, but that was it. She's Leaving Home, I want to talk about as well, because it was fantastic how they did that. It was just so dramatic. So basically the whole stage is in darkness apart from Paul at the front, who's got a spotlight on him, and you know, he's singing the She's part, and then from out of the darkness with spotlight suddenly on them come Abe and Rusty, and they sang John's part, you know, the We Didn't Know It Was Wrong part. So that was really fantastic, really dramatic, and that really added something to the show for me. So just recapping, there were 3 songs from back in the US, Vanilla Sky, Sea Moon and Freedom, that weren't on Back in the World, and replacing them on Back in the World was Calico Skies, Michelle, Let 'Em In and She's Leaving Home. The other songs that I mentioned that were played in the UK don't appear on either of those albums. So in my opinion, I think Back in the World is the better album slightly between the two, but not good enough to get it higher than number 6 in my chart. So my number 6 is Back in the World / Back in the US. So number 5 in my ranking is this album from 2009, Good Evening New York City. This is the 2 CD and 2 DVD version. There was also this version here, which is a 2 CD and 1 DVD version, which obviously came out first. On this one, the extra DVD is some live recordings from the David Letterman show that Paul did, and although we're not really ranking albums on the strength of visuals, it does help this album the fact that we actually get the DVD of the concert as well. So this album was taken from the Summer Live 09 tour, and these live albums seem to be getting longer as Paul gets older. This one runs at just over 2 hours. Let's have a look at what we got on this album that we hadn't had before. So first of all, we've got 2 songs from Memory Almost Full. That's Only Mama Knows and Dance Tonight. We get 2 songs from Flaming Pie, which is Flaming Pie and Calico Skies. I know that Calico Skies was on the Backing the World album, but it wasn't on the Back in the US album, so really it's on a Universal Paul McCartney live album for the first time. We get Highway and Sing the Changes from Electric Arguments, and Mrs. Vanderbilt is here for the very first time on a live album. CD2 is a little bit light on solo and Wings material. In fact, there are no Wings or solo songs on CD2. There is one solo song, but it's not a Paul McCartney one. It's a John Lennon song, and that's Give Peace a Chance, and that's used as a medley with A Day in the Life. But let's have a look at what new Beatles songs we get on disc 2. So we get I'm Down for the first time, fantastic version of I'm Down. That was on the concert for New York, the benefit concert that Paul did for the victims of 9/11, but this is the first time it's on a Paul McCartney solo album. We get Something, which we've had before, but on the Back in the World, Back in the US tour, Paul did this solo just on ukulele, did the whole song on the ukulele just on his own. This time we get it how we kind of recognize it now, where he starts it off on ukulele, and then just before the solo the whole band kick in, and it's really dramatic and emotional and a much better way of doing the song. So it's fantastic to have that on a live album for the first time. We get I've Got a Feeling for the first time, really great to get that. Day Tripper is here for the first time on a live album, and Helter Skelter is also here for the first time on a live album. So although we've had I Saw Her Standing There on live albums before, on this album Billy Joel is a guest on the song, and he does a little bit of vocals and plays piano. To be honest, doesn't really add anything to the song for me. I'd rather just have it with Paul and the band, if I'm honest. So by 2009, Paul is he's 67, and we are seeing a little bit of deterioration in his voice, but it's still really good. In fact, the version on this album of Helter Skelter won a Grammy for Best Rock Vocal Performance. But there are a couple of songs on here where you can really hear the vulnerability in his voice, particularly the ones where he's on his own, things like Blackbird and Here Today. Yesterday he hits all the notes perfectly. My Love is mostly really great. There's a couple of notes that he doesn't quite get, and you know, I think we accept that. You know, for me as a drummer, you know, I sometimes miss a beat, and someone in the band says you miss a beat, and my answer to that is, yeah, but look at all the ones I hit. And it's the same for Paul. You know, he might get the odd note, he might miss the odd note, but look at all the ones that he gets right. So let's not complain about it too much. You know, he does a good job on this, as do the band, who are as tight as a gnat's chuff. They are really fantastic on this album. So what are the high points? I think it's great getting a version of Only Mama Knows. That's fantastic. I love Let Me Roll It on this album with the extra bit. I've Got a Feeling is great, as is I'm Down. Really good performance of Get Back. I think this is a very good live album. For me, the main flaw in it is there's not enough solo and Wings material. But what we do get here is played very well and sung very well by Paul. So Good Evening New York City is number 5 in my chart. So number 4 is this album from 1990, Trippin' the Life Fantastic. I just absolutely loved this album when it came out, because this was the first album that had lots and lots of Beatles songs on it. Now, up to this point, Paul had shied away from doing Beatles songs live. Wings Over America had 5. I think he did 4 or 5 on the UK tour in 1979. But this one, we get quite a lot of Beatles songs for the first time. So I was very excited to get this, to hear it. And when I got it, I played it to death. Little point on the hype sticker, it says that there are 36 songs on this album. There are actually 37. Just saying. But yeah, we get a lot of songs here that we haven't had before. He did this tour. This is the 89-90 tour in support of the Flowers in the Dirt album, and we get lots of songs from Flowers in the Dirt on it, which is an album that I love and still love. So this is why this is so high in my chart. So the 1989-90 World Tour, a record-breaking tour for Paul. I think one of the gigs, he played to 200,000 people at the Maracana Stadium in Rio de Janeiro, which was the record back then. I don't know if it's still a record that still stands, but it was back then. It was the first tour that he'd undertaken since 1979 when he toured the UK, and it was his first tour with his new band. So his new band were obviously Paul and Linda. We had Wicks on keyboards, we had Robbie McIntosh on lead guitar, and Hamish Stewart on bass and guitar, and on drums Chris Whitten. So new band, new tour, completely new set list. So what did we get on this album that we hadn't had before? Well, pretty much everything. So we had a few songs from Flowers in the Dirt, which was the album that Paul was promoting. Figure of Eight was on there, as was Rough Ride. We got Gotta Get You Into My Life was back in the set. That had been played in 1979, but had never been on a live album. It had been on the Concert for Kampuchea album, but this was the first time on a dedicated Paul live album. We got Birthday for the first time, and Ebony and Ivory, where Hamish Stewart sang the Stevie Wonder part. And it's funny because Paul has had 3 #1 hit singles in the UK. Ebony and Ivory, which he only ever played on this tour. Mull of Kintyre, which he played extensively on the 1979 tour, but has rarely played it since. And Pipes of Peace, which he's never played live. We've Got Married, a fantastic version, and it's a song that really lends itself well to the live format. Those guitar parts just really chunk through it. They sound fantastically powerful. Fall on the Hill was back in the set again. That was played in 1979, but it's first time on a live album. And then we get Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, a song that the Beatles obviously never played live themselves, so we were hearing it here with a Beatle singing a Sgt. Pepper song for the first time, and they did a fantastic job with it. They did the whole of the title track, and then it goes into sort of an elongated sort of guitar part where there's solos flying everywhere, and then it comes back down and it goes into the Sgt. Pepper reprise, which is a really great way of doing it. Can't Buy Me Love is here for the first time, as is Put It There from Flowers in the Dirt. Things We Said Today is back in the set, probably for the first time since the Hollywood Bowl gigs, and they do it in a really interesting way. At the end of the song, there's a slow bluesy guitar outro, which is really lovely and very atmospheric. Eleanor Rigby is here for the first time. This one and My Brave Face from Flowers in the Dirt, both fantastic songs. Back in the USSR is here for the first time, and so is I Saw Her Standing There. 20 Flight Rock, the Eddie Cochran cover that Paul did on the Russian album, is here, and so is Coming Up from McCartney 2, appearing on a live album for the first time. Again, a song that Paul did on the 1979 UK tour before it was even released on record, but here it is with in a live format with a really nice sort of drum solo from Chris Whittons. We get Let It Be for the first time. Ain't That a Shame, the Fats Domino song, another song from the Russian album. Hey Jude for the first time with the, Just the Fellas, Just the Ladies, that thing that he does every time and has not stopped doing it since. We get Back for the first time, a great song, and the set finishes with the Abbey Road medley, Golden Slumbers, Carry That Weight, and The End. Now, also on this album, we get some songs from the soundcheck. Now, these songs are interspersed within the set of the album, whereas on Paulie's Live, all the soundcheck songs were bunged at the end and didn't really fit. Here they sound as if they do fit because they've added audience sound at the start and the end of the song. They feel like they're part of the set and don't sort of stick out like a sore thumb. I won't go through all of them because some of them are just sort of snippets and throwaways and stuff like that, but there's a couple of really good ones. There's a song called Together, which is really nice, and there's also a cover of the Jerry and the Pacemakers song, Don't Let the Sun Catch You Crying. So that was really great as well. So all in all, this is a really superb album with lots of stuff on this album never released on a live album before. We've got all the Flowers in the Dirt songs, and we've got all the Beatles songs that we've never had before. So all in all, this is a really, really strong live album. The musicianship is fantastic. Paul's voice is fantastic. As I say, when it came out, I just loved it to pieces, and I played it non-stop around that time. I caught up with the tour in January 1990. Went to a gig at Wembley Arena, and it really was a fantastic show, absolutely brilliant show. and I believe that on this album the tracks Band on the Run and We Got Married were recorded the night I was there. You can probably hear me going woo woo. So my number 4 is Trippin' the Live Fantastic. So you can probably guess what my top 3 live albums are gonna be, but please join me for part 3 of this video to see which order they turn up in. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning into the channel and watching this video. Thanks very much. As usual, I'd love it if you told me what you think of these 3 albums down in the comments. You know I read everything and will reply to everything. If you're seeing this channel for the first time, please consider subscribing to the channel and supporting it. Give the video a like and hit that notification bell and you won't miss a thing. I thank you once more for joining me, and I'll see you very shortly for part 3, the final part of Paul's live albums rankings. I'll see you soon.